Part 2, Chapter 2 of Ignatius Donnelly's Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, read by Lizzie Karen. The heading of Chapter 2 is The Deluge of the Bible. We give first the Bible history of the deluge as found in Genesis chapter 6 to chapter 8. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. God said, My spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him in his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created, from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing and the fowl of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, and the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under the heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But thee I will establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee, and of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of each sort shalt thou bring to the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female, of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee, to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so did he. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou, and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female. Of fowls also of the air by seven, the male and the female, to keep and seed alive upon the face of the earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made I will destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, into the ark, because of the waters of the flood. Of clean beasts, of beasts that are not clean, and of fowl, of everything that creepeth upon the earth. They went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. In the selfsame day entered Noah, and Shem, and Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them, into the ark, they and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2, of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they that went in, male and female, of all flesh, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased, and bare up the ark, and it was lifted up above the earth, and the waters prevailed, and were increased greatly upon the earth. And the ark went upon the face of the waters, and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heavens were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered, and all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life. Of all that was in the dry land died, and every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, that they were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. And God remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaded. The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated, and the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark, which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. Also he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him in the ark. For the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand, and took her, and pulled her into him into the ark. And he stayed yet another 7 days. And again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came in to him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf, plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he stayed yet other 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife, and thy sons and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kind, went forth out of the ark. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast, and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savour. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground, and any more for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more every living thing as have I done. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Let us briefly consider this record. It shows, taken in connection with the opening chapters of Genesis, 1, that the land destroyed by water was the country in which the civilization of the human race originated. Adam was at first naked, according to Genesis chapter 3, line 7. Then he clothed himself in leaves. Then in the skin of animals, chapter 3:21, he was the first that tilled the earth, having emerged from a more primitive condition in which he lived upon the fruits of the forest, chapter 2:16. His son Abel was the first of those that kept flocks of sheep, chapter 4:2. His son Cain was the builder of the first city, chapter 4:17. His descendant Tubal-Cain was the first metallurgist, chapter 4:22. Jubal was the first that erected tents and kept cattle, chapter 4:20. Jubal was the first that made musical instruments. We have here the successive steps by which a savage race advances to civilization. We will see hereafter that the Atlanteans passed through precisely similar stages of development. 2. The Bible agrees with Plato in the statement that these antediluvians had reached great populousness and wickedness, and that it was on account of their wickedness God resolved to destroy them. 3. In both cases, the inhabitants of the doomed land were destroyed in a great catastrophe. By the agency of water, they were drowned. 4. The Bible tells us that in an earlier age, before their destruction, mankind had dwelt in a happy, peaceful, sinless condition in a Garden of Eden. Plato tells the same thing of the early ages of the Atlanteans. 5. In both the Bible history and Plato's story, the destruction of the people was largely caused by the intermarriage of the superior or divine race, the sons of God, with the inferior stock, the children of men, whereby they were degraded and rendered wicked. We will see hereafter that the Hebrews and their flood legend are closely connected with the Phoenicians, whose connection with Atlantis is established in many ways. It is now conceded by scholars that the genealogical table given in the Bible, Genesis chapter 10, is not intended to include other races. I have summarized that part. It refers altogether to the Mediterranean races, the Aryans, the Cushites, the Phoenicians, the Hebrews, and the Egyptians, the sons of Ham. As a note, he then refers to Winchell's Pre-Adamites book, chapter 7. If these races, the Chinese, Australian, American, etc., are not descended from Noah, they could not have been included in the deluge. If neither China, Japan, America, Northern Europe, nor Australia were depopulated by the deluge could not have been universal. But as it is alleged that it did destroy a country and drowned all the people thereof, except Noah and his family, the country so destroyed could not have been Europe, Asia, Africa, America, or Australia, for there has been no universal destruction of the people in those regions. Or if there had been, how can we account for the existence today of people on all those continents whose descent, Genesis, does not trace back to Noah? And in fact, about whom the writer of Genesis seems to have known nothing. We are thus driven to one of two alternative conclusions. Either the deluge record of the Bible is altogether fabulous, or it relates to some land other than Europe, Asia, Africa, or Australia, some land that was destroyed by water. It is not fabulous. And the land it refers to is not Europe, Asia, Africa, or Australia, but Atlantis. No other land is known to history or tradition that was overthrown in a great catastrophe by the agency of water, that was civilized, populous, powerful, and given over to wickedness. That high and orthodox authority, Francois Lemoine, says in his book, Ancient Histories of the East, Volume 1, page 64, the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japhet, so admirably catalogued by Moses, including one only of the races of humanity, whose three chief divisions he gives us as now recognized by anthropologists. The other races were not in the Bible, lists of nations sprung from Noah. As therefore the deluge of the Bible destroyed only the land and people of Noah, it could not have been universal. The religious world does not pretend to fix the location of the Garden of Eden. The Reverend George Leo Haydock says, the precise situation cannot be ascertained. How great might its extent, we don't know. And we will see hereafter that the unwritten traditions of the Church pointed to a region in the west, beyond the ocean, which bounds Europe in that direction, as the locality in which mankind dwelt before the deluge. It will be more and more evident as we proceed in the consideration of the flood legends of other nations that the antediluvian world was none other than Atlantis. So that's the end of chapter 2, part 2. This, as a side note from me, the reader of this chapter, I found some passages most uncomfortable to read, so please forgive my hesitancy in some passages and some other parts where I was unable to say exactly what was in the book. So I do apologize to you all, but I encourage you to read this book for yourself, and you will see why it was a very, very uncomfortable chapter to read.